Okay, so today we are in Silom, which is the financial district of Bangkok. Think Wall Street of Thailand. And we're gonna meet with an American expat who's been able to make $2,200 a month in net income, renting out an office space in this building right here. His name is Raj, and he's been investing in real estate in Thailand for 15 years now. And in this case study of his strata office, we're going to talk about things like the advantages of investing in a strata office compared to residential property, how to negotiate with a Thai seller, what questions to ask, and also how the realities of owning property in Thailand as a foreigner. That sounds good to you? Let's go meet with Raj right now. He's actually waiting for us right here.
Hey Jed,
welcome. Great time. Thank you so much.
Today.
Yeah. Now before we go up, let's actually do a neighborhood walk and just talk about this neighborhood here.
Okay.
Like kind of give us a background on why you chose this neighborhood and all like that. All right, so let's do it. For those who don't really know this neighborhood is Silom, and it's like the financial district of Bangkok,
correct.
right? So
exactly.
Tell me a little bit what attracted you to this neighborhood here.
So I love Silom. There's modern office buildings and condos, but there's also this whole like community of locals here.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see like there's motorcycle taxis here.
Yeah.
This is gonna get you anywhere faster than any fancy car, right?
Yeah.
So if you need to move around, you can take these guys. There's street food all over here during the day.
Yeah, and that factors in a lot in terms of like office space too, because that keeps the employees happy.
I look for street food whenever I get office space because this is what employees need to eat.
Yeah, true.
It's cheap and it's better than anything you're going to find in a restaurant.
Now, we're doing this on a Saturday, but usually all these stalls here are open, right?
This is full. It is
packed.
Full and it's packed. Even during COVID time, it's packed. Everybody's always here going someplace, doing something.
Yeah. And so what do you think is the appeal of Silom compared to other neighborhoods? Like, I know it's very business oriented. Like, as we can see here, on the weekends, like no one's here because this is where people come to work.
It's very quiet on the weekends.
So it's very conducive. So this is where the office spaces are.
This is one area, and each one has its benefits and its drawbacks. So I wouldn't say that Silom is necessarily the best area in Bangkok. But it's one of the good areas. And if you can get an office space here for a good price, I always recommend it because this area always goes up in price.
Now, one observation one might have about Silom is that there's all these older office buildings, and it's actually because land ownership here doesn't really change hands, right? Because people are really holding on to the valuable property that they have here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is old money territory here,
That's
right?
right.
This, if you're doing a little quick history lesson, this was where actually the first foreign traders settled, and that's what started Silom as the first OG international commerce center in Bangkok, and it kind of stuck that way ever since,
That's
right?
Correct.
So the kind of like the vibe in the air of Silom is very business oriented.
It is. It's and you make a good point. There's a lot of old buildings. There's a lot of old shops.
Yeah.
But you'll also see a vibrancy when you walk by things. Everything's being utilized.
Yes.
So things may not be changing hands. They may not be renovated, but they're still making money.
Yep.
And who wants to renovate when you're already making money?
True. It's almost like there's like this no nonsense kind of feeling to it. Like there's no ostentatiousness. It's not like they're making all these offices look very fancy and all like that. This is like very practical.
It's very functional.
Very
practical.
functional.
Now, new offices that are going to come in, they have to be grade A, they have to be beautiful, and they have to be worth the extra price that people are going to pay for.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. But meanwhile, they're not going to tear these buildings down. They're all still making money.
Yep.
They're all still doing well. They're full of offices. And that's what I love about Silom. That's what I love about this area.
I guess we're going to touch on this later in the interview, but you mentioned something about like a lot of these buildings, they just don't build them like this anymore, right?
Yeah, correct. Land prices have skyrocketed around Bangkok.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons a lot of condos are popping up is because it makes sense for the developers.
Whoa. Well,
there's another resident of Silom.
Yep. It really reminds you of the Wall Street of Silom,
Exactly.
of Bangkok, the
Exactly.
Wall Street of America.
And as we're saying that, we're actually passing an empty land right now. And then this is getting ready for development or sale to change hands.
Yeah.
So they're building a lot of condominiums because for the developers, they can make money off of those and they can charge like very high prices and people are still buying it. But you can't make an office space like that. You can't make an office that rents for a reasonable amount every month per square meter.
Yeah.
It just will cost you too much to buy the land and build a new building. So there's just no way to replicate these anymore.
So what actually attracted you to, so we talked about Silom in general, so what actually attracted you to this particular neighborhood here and this building?
Well, I've lived around Silom for a long time, and an agent actually told me about this building because she wanted to buy it for herself, but couldn't get the financing together. So she offered it to me because she knew that this is my interest. I saw it, and I know she calculated everything for herself, and it made sense, so I thought I'd do the same.
Do you have kind of a future outlook or a general sense of optimism about Silom and its direction for development?
I always believe that Silom is going to go up in price. Now, if you look at every single property, is every single one going to go up in price? No. I mean, that's crazy to think that everything is going to be fine or everything's going to be bad. But there's so many people that need to use this area for so many different purposes, and the land prices just keep going up and up. And there's not that much land left, so it can only really go up in value.
Yeah.
So I think it's also up to the people that are utilizing these buildings or the communities that are in charge of what to do with these buildings to keep them nicely and to help keep their value. I mean, look, we have like a Marriott right here.
Yeah.
And then we have a tailor shop over here. And then we have a townhouse that hasn't been renovated in 40 years right over there. So it's all on the same corner.
Yeah,
it's
everyone
wonderful.
wants to go to the Marriott, it seems.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. All right, we'll keep going. Yeah,
so I think Silom, in general, property here has a very good chance of appreciating.
Right.
More so than a lot of other places. So Jed, come on in. Let me show you the office.
Thank you. Nice.
Okay, here it is.
This looks different from the hallway. That's like old building. This is like redone, modern, renovated.
Exactly.
How much of this was you and how much was the previous owner?
Well, I bought this from a wealth management company.
Okay.
And they had it really nicely done already. The only thing I did was I added some more versatile furniture so that companies can come in and just start working right away. So that's why it looks really nice. And you know, I'm the owner, I can do whatever I want with it, right?
Okay.
I can make it as nice or as bare shell as it needs to be.
So yeah, turnkey, you've got your reception here.
Yep, correct.
This is
a pantry that employees can use, make their coffee, do this and do that. This is the bathrooms, the air conditioning unit.
Okay.
This is my favorite room.
I can see why.
Yeah, so this is a conference room right now, but it can be turned into a training room for seminars. There's a projector here, so people can stand right there and do
whiteboard
trainings, whatever you need to do. And we've had a few of our tenants do that already. This is another conference room. You can do video conferencing. You can just do television presentations. Again, there's another whiteboard.
Okay, nice. Let's see the rest of the place.
Sure. This is a more versatile area. You can also put desks over here, or you can do something creative depending on what your company needs.
I see the CEO sits here.
Yeah, this is the manager, and he can see what's going on over there.
All right, so let's go over to your favorite room and talk about the numbers.
Okay, come on over.
Let's actually start this with an overview of 2021. How was that for you in this office?
2021, honestly speaking, for the office, the first half of the year wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. I was consistently getting my rent. And a lot of businesses that come to these types of offices, they're saving a lot of money and they're getting a lot more value for money, especially in an office like this. It's like fully kitted out. So they can't save that much money by leaving the office. They probably have to go work at a home office or work remotely. So if that's their only option, fine. But a lot of companies can't work remotely. So I did well for, I would say, like the first half of the year. The second half of 2021 started getting pretty rough. So I think just with everybody else. So if you compare how it was and how I was doing, even in 2020, I was doing poorly because I wasn't getting a lot of rentals in. But if you compare how I was doing to all other businesses, about par for the course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess it's like towards the end of the year, people are starting to run out of cash flow and all like that. They're trying to find ways to cut costs and all like that.
It's not just cash flow. I think people ran out of cash flow long before that for certain types of businesses. They're investing to keep their foothold in the market. And sometimes you just can't keep doing that.
Right.
So I think that's what we were seeing is we were seeing a lot of offices closing because they're like, I just don't want to keep investing money in this without getting anything back. But cash flow dried up for a long time. Things are coming back now, which is good. And it happens like immediately.
Yeah.
So some of the old businesses may not come back, but new businesses are springing up left and right.
I bet people are eager to get back to how it is.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right?
Like
people are ready to go.
The amount of calls I'm getting now is totally different than even when we did our last video. It was like, it's pretty quiet. The phone's not ringing that much. Okay. Now it's like quite often.
So everyone's optimistic. They're ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're ready.
When we were talking last time, we were going to talk about this place as a vacant office and talk about past numbers. But now you've went ahead and rented it out to someone. You're signing a lease in the next few days.
Yeah, that just happened this week. So that's why we're doing.
So we're actually, that's even better for this video here because we're actually going to talk about the numbers that you're going to be doing here with this current tenant right here. So it's actually super applicable.
That's correct. So Monday, wish me luck, we're signing the contract. We've already decided on all of the amounts and numbers and how many years they're going to stay and all of this and that.
That's awesome, man.
But
congrats.
Don't congratulate me yet. I don't have money in my bank account yet.
Okay.
Let me get the deposit. Let's get the contract signed, and then the deal is done.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sensing a little bit of like
trepidation,
exactly. This might be based on some kind of past experience you've had here. Can you share?
I've done a lot of contracts. And I'm not going to say people are bad and they negate their word, but things happen, and things happen fast, especially in business. So we might agree on something, but they might change their mind. They might find another situation for their business, or they might go out of business, or they might have a fight with their partner. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? I'm not responsible for trying to figure that out. They bring me a deposit, we start the deal.
Okay.
They don't bring me a deposit, I'm keeping the place open for other people to look at.
But right now, fingers crossed, knock on wood.
Fingers crossed.
It's Saturday right now. If all goes well, Monday
should be good.
Sign the contract.
I have their company registration, their ID cards. They seem like pretty great people. I'm looking forward to it.
Cool.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah. So let's talk actual numbers here. Okay. So in the intro, we were talking about $2,200 monthly net income.
Correct.
That in Thai baht, that's around 70,600 something baht.
Correct. Now that's what I'm getting after all my expenses.
For this particular,
correct.
So it's not any net. Like make-believe number or number from pre-COVID. It's what you're putting in the contract right now.
Like I'm not renting this place out for 70,000 baht. It's renting out for a bit more, so it's 450 baht per square meter, which during COVID time I think it's a good rent for me. It's a good rent for the tenant, especially during these times. I believe this can actually go up in price, back up to price, to a market rate a little bit higher than that. But for now, that's good. I'm happy with the rent, and the tenant's happy because they're getting exactly what they need with minimal overheads, so they can start working right away. Okay, which is great.
So what are you deducting here from the gross rent?
Okay, so let's take this. Let's take this rent, for example. So I'm getting 450 baht per square meter. That's about, it's 210 square meters in this office.
Right.
It's like 210.53, but I just rounded it to 210, even for the tenants. So that works out to around 94,500 baht per month. Every month I have to pay common fees, so that's around 7,300. We'll just say 7,500 per month. That's around like 90,000 baht per year. There's property tax, so that's already calculated. I'm not going to go into the calculations, it's complicated. That's around 34,500 for this year. The government's already calculated that. So I will pay that as well. I'll deduct that. I take care of that as a landlord. But there are cases where you can push that onto the tenant, and it depends on your negotiations. I'm not going to, just because it's COVID time and everything like that. I'm feeling generous.
That's why you're renting this place out so often.
Right, exactly.
Right.
I prefer the speed, the nickel and diming people, but you
Yeah.
can do that. And it is known in many properties that people do that. Let's see, what else? I have a few other things. So now it's not going to be vacant, but in general, I always work in about 1 month of vacancy per year. Now that's my job to make sure that's as low as possible, because this is my investment. So I can talk to brokers, but I have to be the one making sure that I'm getting people coming into the office. And if I think somebody's going to leave, then I make arrangements to start showing it at least 2 months in advance. But this place before COVID is like rarely vacant. Usually they're overlapping.
Right.
One comes in after the other.
So you're factoring 1 month a year vacancy, but this past year you had 4. So
Yes,
would you up that amount going into COVID time, like maybe at least 2023, 24?
I don't think so, to be honest,
No?
because now, I don't know about everywhere else, but in Bangkok there's a 70% vaccinated rate. So I think that even with some higher COVID numbers, and I'm not a health expert, so I don't know what they're going to do, but I don't see them shutting things down as aggressively as they did before we had any safety measures in place. So I'm
more optimistic.
I'm more optimistic about
and I think most people they want to get back to work and they want to actually do business and all like that. So I think we've got a better handle of the situation.
Correct.
So it's going to be better. Okay, that's awesome. So
another thing that I build in is agent fees. So this is actually going through an agent, and they take 1 month. Now with condos, sometimes they take a month, sometimes they take a month and a half. If it's 2 years, sometimes they take 2 months if it's 3 years. And I usually negotiate that with them, or I space out the commission payments. But for offices, it's usually just one month, no matter if it's 1, 2, or 3 year lease. Now it caps at 3 years. And that's usually the type of rentals that I get. I usually get a 3-year lease period. But on average, I don't go through tenants very often. So before COVID time, probably for most of my offices, the average is about 3 to 6 years. We usually do a renewal. So agent fees are very negligible amounts, but I like to factor it in anyway. So I do 1 month every 2 years.
Okay.
That's an average. So I'm still deducting that. And if I can beat that, I'm happy.
So around 94K gross, it comes down to around 70K net.
Yeah.
And assuming a market price of this place of around 14 million, that's a 6% yield on your 6% net yield on your investment.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly.
Now let's put context around that.
Okay.
Because now we're talking about commercial office, right?
Right.
6% yield. How does that compare to typically when someone comes in here, everyone looks at residential properties, right? But it seems like everyone's focused on that. So how does 6%, we don't know if that's high or low, how does that compare to the conventional residential property yield?
Yeah, that's a good question, and let's back it up a little bit, because some people don't know that they have an option to buy property like this. Now, I don't recommend it for everybody, but it works really well for me because as a foreigner, I can put my name on the title deed, as long as I bring all of the money in from the US, as I mentioned before. So I always do compare it to condos. And right now, if you buy a 20 million baht condo, what are you really going to rent it out for? Maybe 50,000 baht, 60,000 baht tops. You have common fees. If it's a big space, your common fees are going to be high. It's going to be probably around 13,000, 14,000 baht per month. It's quite a lot. Not to mention your repairs. If it's an older condo, your repair costs are going to be higher. If it's a newer condo, your repair costs are lower now, but they're deferred, because some of the nicer places, the repair costs are going to be very high in a few years when all those nice things start breaking down.
Well, not to mention there's a high premium for newer condos too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you end up getting about 2-3%.
2 or 3%.
If you're lucky.
Okay. Yeah.
And some people can do more than that. I would say they're outliers. They're not like the status quo. But I would say the average yield for higher end condos like that is around 2 to 3%.
2 to 3%. That's what you should expect from residential properties.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you shouldn't be buying at that price for that small yield.
Yeah.
Some people buy for themselves, and that's okay.
Yeah.
There's no shame in buying something for yourself. I think that's wonderful. But if you're buying for investment,
Pure numbers game. It doesn't look like a good investment case, really.
it's not always numbers. If you have a feeling that something is going to happen and things are going to go up, you are taking a chance on that feeling, and that's also okay. Sometimes the numbers don't reflect curveballs in the market, positive or negative.
So why do you think the yield here is higher? Is it just because there's less people focused in this market here? Is that why? So that there's less competition that's pressing rents down?
That's an excellent question, and I'm not entirely sure, but my opinion is you can't build these buildings anymore. So the problem is the newer office spaces are on very expensive land, and they're very expensive buildings, and they have to go for a very high amount per square meter to offset some of those costs and everything like that. For something like this was built many years ago, 20, sometimes 30 years ago in these buildings. So they just have these running costs. So they're not, if you would rebuild this building today, you couldn't charge these prices. But you couldn't buy it for these prices either. Right. So it's a bit of a sweet spot, and it's much cheaper than the higher end office spaces, like much cheaper, and the yield is still high.
So that's a factor too, like finding a place in an office, in a building that people just can't build anymore.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
And this is a bet I'm taking, is that I don't believe that you can build another space like this and it can compete with me on price. They're going to sell it for too high, if they even do that. Now, I don't even think they can do the same model where they split out each office into different chenotes or title deeds.
Okay.
It would just be like one single owner, and it's all like a game with the bank and numbers and stuff like that, and interest.
Any other advantages to investing in strata offices?
Yeah, repair costs are really low in general. So the biggest cost here would probably be the aircon. So you have two different types of offices, which is you have like water cooling offices, and then you have split type offices. So split type is where the air conditioner is just outside on a balcony or an outdoor space, and then you can switch it on demand, or then you have big air conditioning ACU units that run off the water system in the building. They have advantages and disadvantages. They're a bit of a cost to repair, but that's once every 5 or 10 years. They last pretty long.
And which one is this one?
This is a water cooling unit.
Water cooler, okay.
In the last.
And that's the easier one to repair?
It's more expensive to buy, but the maintenance is much lower, I find.
Okay.
I find, and it doesn't need to be replaced, it just needs to be repaired. And everything is very modular, so it's quite easy to do that. Yeah, so that's it. So I'll be honest, like my repair costs are very low. And it depends, like I'm giving a turnkey office, so people can just come in and start working right away. But I've also bought furniture that's pretty durable. It lasts very long.
Yeah, not to mention that the furniture you buy for an office space is just like very basic, bare, like stuff like this, right?
Exactly.
Versus like a fancy condo, you got to buy the best couches, the best the best bed, mattress.
This is totally optional.
Yeah.
So with condos in Bangkok, you have to rent them out furnished. Once there is a market for unfurnished, it's very low.
Yeah.
And rare, and
of course.
And you're going to sit on a lot of vacant months looking for somebody that wants a bare shell unit. So for offices, most of them come bare shell.
Okay.
Most of them.
Wow. As a default.
As a default.
Now, what about in terms of foreign ownership of office spaces? How does that work?
It's the same thing as any condo. It's 49%.
Okay. Wow.
It's 49%. And you're going to find, especially Bangkok, I mean, you're well under that. I mean, I'd be, like, usually I'm the only foreign owner. Let's put it this way.
So let's say at this point, I'm a viewer. What you've said has piqued my interest. Now I'm more interested.
Okay.
I'm looking at a place now. What are some questions that I need to ask the seller when I'm coming to visit a place like this?
Okay.
It looks nice, like you said, turnkey. It's nicely furnished, looks pretty modern, despite being in a 20, 30-year building. That means it's very well kept.
Right.
What are some things that I need to consider when having a sit-down conversation with the seller?
Okay, so I mean, it's pretty simple with an office. You come in, you look at it, and first you see the space. Does this look like a place you would want to do business in, or that somebody else would? And that's your gut feeling, right? That's with any investment. You have to see, like, can you picture somebody enjoying this place? Number two is just go through the numbers, find out what the common fees are, find out what are some of the repair costs that have been involved over the last few years. Sometimes they don't even divulge that, but it shouldn't be very much. Just look at the condition of the flooring and this and that. Does it have to be repaired or taken out? Sometimes even you can even get tenants to do that for you. But I always find that it helps to get a place, at least in working condition. Yeah, and always check your air conditioners. I know I keep saying that, but everywhere you go, even condos, check the air conditioner.
No, these are nuggets that foreigners may not know, right?
Yeah.
Check the air conditioner. This is Bangkok.
Yeah, exactly.
We do run on AC here.
Exactly.
Productivity.
Everything is run on AC.
Run on AC.
Right.
Yeah.
So check your air cons and check all that stuff, and just scout the area.
Okay.
Because in general, it's you're always going to be marketing to business owners, but business owners want a good environment for their team and their employees and their clients. So you want a place that impresses their clients when they come in, but you also want a good environment for their staff. And a lot of that has to do with the area around the office. So this sounds funny, but it's like you want to have street food close to your office space.
Right.
Because your staff don't want, you might be paying your staff differently than other people, but in general, it's people don't want to spend 1,000 baht for lunch. They want to spend 50 baht and get something excellent, not 1,000 baht for something mediocre. So it's great to be by a mall and this and that, but actually you really want street food and good Thai food.
And Silom is actually perfect for that.
Oh, yeah,
Silom has tons of, as we saw, and like that.
Basically, there's street food a stone throw away anywhere you go in this area, which is really nice.
Okay.
Another good thing about office space is everything is above board. So everything goes through the revenue department. It's all, if you own this on your personal name, whether you rent to another person or to a company, you have to register everything with the revenue department. And all my properties go through the revenue department because I believe that's going to be the future of Thailand anyways. But this is good because companies can also come and buy this place from you. And they have a lot of incentives to maybe spend the money because they can offset some of their costs. Because let's say they're having a huge amount of income from another stream of their business. Whatever expenses here, they can offset their income and their profit so that their taxes are lower. So you have a lot more options about people that are going to buy. So you can have individuals that are investors. You have companies that are buying it for themselves. You also have companies that are investing in office space so that they can have another income stream, but they can also offset some of the expenses with their other income streams. So there's a lot of different options.
Okay.
So it's a more flexible market, in my opinion.
So what about, let's say you're coming in, you buy this strictly as you want to be the owner who just wants to rent it out. You don't want to start a company here or anything. You just want to invest in it. Okay. Should you consider places that are bare shell that need work, or should you look at places that are turnkey? Like what are those conditions?
It all depends on price.
Okay.
It depends on price and the market. So you have to do some homework, and I would suggest talking with some agents or talking with some other people that are in this business to understand, are you in an area that has a higher amount per square meter or a lower amount per square meter? Because you don't want to go into an office, spend a few million baht, and then find that nobody can afford it. So go in and figure it out. So usually in more commercial places like Silom and Sukhumvit area, bare shell offices are fine because people are looking to build their own stuff into that. And just see your numbers. So what are you buying it for? What is your net price after all of like your business tax and transfer fees, and what have you negotiated with the seller, or what are they asking for? You want to figure out what are you buying after the land department. And you go through those numbers and you figure that out, what your net price is. And then you figure out what is the yield that you need. So if you need 5%, you have to work backwards. So you find what is the rent you can get for this? How long is it going to take? Calculate your vacancies as well and your agent fees and all the other running expenses that are happening and work backwards.
Now, if you're new to the market, who could you maybe consult with to help come up with these numbers? Would it be an accountant, a lawyer, or an agent?
I would say an agent is probably going to be your best bet.
So now we've done an overview of the market. You've looked at a place. You've considered the neighborhood. Right. You've done the math in your head, whether this is an attractive yield for you, it's a good investment opportunity. Those are all the numbers and from your observation. Now you're actually going to go into the negotiation process and talk to the seller. what questions should you ask there?
Okay. Well, this is the real crux of the business.
Right.
So you've made all your calculations, you have the numbers, you want to get it for this price to get this much yield. Now you have to convince somebody to sell it to you for that amount.
Yes. So let's do it.
Right. So, and there's a lot of tactics you can use. My personal preference is to be as respectful as possible. So I like going in and trying to talk to the buyer. What is going on? Or talk to the seller. What is going on? Why are you selling this place? What's happening? I don't want it to be an interrogation, but I want to know what's going on and what I can prepare for. So sometimes people are like, oh, you know, I don't want to deal with this anymore and I just want to retire and blah, blah, blah. And I've owned it for 20 years or my family's owned it for 20 years. These are people you have to be very careful with because they might be sincere, they might not be. They might be looking to test the market to see what price they can get. It doesn't mean they're that serious. They don't owe anything to the bank, they own it in cash. So, and they might not be that motivated to sell. So you have to kind of figure out what kind of personality.
So when you ask, why are you selling this? You're actually testing the selling motivation. That's kind of like a way to try to pry out their real motivation.
I mean, I also like figuring out a lot of the people that are selling these types of offices are very interesting people as well. They're business owners and they've done really interesting things, and sometimes they love the office, but it's like they've expanded. Sometimes it's like they got into the office game, but then they are actually focused on something else. So I actually really enjoy talking to them and finding out how they tick, and maybe I can learn something. But the other thing is sometimes they're having a situation that maybe there's another way we can discuss how we do the terms of the deal. So let's say somebody owes a lot of money with the bank and they want to sell this. So we might be talking about a price, but actually the price can be secondary to how fast they get the money. So if somebody's telling me, well, it's like I owe the bank and I'm trying to get it out of the bank as soon as possible so I can do this or do that, or so I have less overheads or less stress. You might be able to drop the price if you can pay them within a month. If you can get your money out or pay them like right away, they might change their mind. Now, some people don't know that. So you have to massage that out of them a little bit. And sometimes my way of doing that is saying, listen, this is what I have, and I love this place, and this is what I can do. And if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. And then usually it's a quick no, and I'll think about it, and how soon can you get it? And then I start getting more information. That's just a very specific situation. That's not always the case, but there's a lot of office spaces that are owned partially by the bank. So you're going to run into this quite a bit.
The temptation is to just get them by the jugular and say, you're still paying each month an interest. If I go this low, you're going to save you a lot of time. But it sounds to me it could be a bit too aggressive, like you're insulting the seller.
You have to find your style, and you have to figure out the person across from you. Is that going to help or not? So yeah, if you want to go for the jugular and it works, I mean, go for it. That's going to make you happy. That's fine. I often find that people don't like to be yelled at in their own office.
Exactly. Yeah. or reminded of their own problems, and their monthly obligations and interests.
And
right.
Maybe they're having a problem here, but they're super successful in other stuff, which overshadows this.
But it is an issue. But it is a main issue, though, because you're trying to convey that you want to relieve them of that financial burden.
Exactly.
It's just that how can you phrase that in a way that doesn't offend them?
This is negotiations.
Yeah.
People often say, oh man, I would have bought that place if I knew it was that much. It's never that much. You have to get it down to that cost, that price. And that's your negotiation. That's how you invest. You talk people into a price that works for both of you at that specific time.
Nice.
So that's that would be my advice for people. Talk to the seller and see what you can find out. And see if there's other terms of buying the property that can help you drop that price. Because the lower you buy the property for, the lower you can sell it for, which means the faster you can sell it for in the future.
So we've touched upon the negotiation process a bit. Let's say that went smoothly and you want to buy the place.
Right.
I know this is done to death about the purchase process, but let's just go over it very quickly. Let's see if it's the same as condos.
Oh, actually, it's pretty much the same as buying a condominium. So I mean, let's talk about foreign ownership.
Yeah.
So if you're a foreigner, and talk to your agent about this to make sure you get all the details correct. But basically, you have to bring all of your money over for the property, and you have to negotiate with your seller. And then you might do a deposit, but you still, whatever you are paying at the land department, you have to bring all of that from the US. So you bring it in, you do this, you get the letters from the jurisdict that it's free and clear. You get a letter from the bank that you've transferred this money from abroad. They give you a letter, and then you basically start getting your money together for the seller. And you go to the land department and you do the deal.
Yeah.
And then you have to go through you have to still negotiate your like transfer fees, your business tax, the withholding tax, like all those like litany of things, if it's stamp duty. And then you'll figure that out with the seller at the land department, or if somebody's helping you with that.
Cool.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
so very similar to condo.
Same thing
okay,
as a condo,
cool.
correct.
I just wanted to gloss over that because I want to get to the juicy stuff that's probably not covered anywhere else is once you buy it, what next? Life of a strata office owner.
Okay.
What headaches do you have? What goes through your mind day to day? What do you need to worry about?
Okay.
What does it take to own a strata office?
Okay. I have very few headaches as a strata office owner. I don't have to worry about washing machines breaking down or this leaking or that leaking. I mean, once in a while there's some leaks in the building, but it's very minimal and there's not that much expenses. In general, it's a very hands-off process. You have to be hands-on for renting it out. And then your tenants more or less disappear until the end of the tenancy. A lot of my tenants take care of all of the air conditioning costs and everything because they're using it. Sometimes they need it more, sometimes they need it less. They should be maintaining it. So it's not really an issue anymore once it's being rented out, as long as I give it to them in good condition. I don't need to renovate the floors. I don't really need to repaint everything. I do once in a while if I feel like it. It's pretty easy. It's like I'm pretty happy about it. Another reason I really like owning strata offices is because I find it's much easier to sell. And this might just be for me, but I find condos very hard to sell, especially in this market now.
How so?
There's an oversupply, and it's like specific people will be able to buy a condo off of you. Not everybody can get financing, and especially foreigners. The yield is very low. And especially as a foreigner, you can't borrow against it. So it's kind of like a stranded investment until you sell it. So there's all these things that make it difficult or inconvenient. But for strata office, I think it's a more niche market. So most of the time, I have people in the building that want to buy my offices, and they're basically waiting for me to sell it. Now that's not the case with every office, but most of them. Most of them, it's like my neighbors will buy it because they just want to expand.
Wow.
Right, like into my office. So it's very easy. And there's a few more options when selling. So buyers come in, like there's foreign buyers once in a while, but it's mostly Thais and locals and companies. And companies have different reasons for buying it. And they don't need to nickel and dime me on cost, because they need something fast. They need to expand, they need to own this, and then they can use the cost to offset other income, like I was saying before. So they just need speed. They just need to know that if I sell, they can own this, and we can run through all the bank stuff if they're financing. If they're not, I can have it ready for them immediately, so they can get their people in and start working like right away. That's really the big thing. So yeah, I find it's like much easier to find a buyer when I'm ready.
Wow. Yeah. Now, we in the beginning we talked about, it's a much more attractive investment opportunity in terms of the yield, in terms of maintenance costs, in terms of that. Does this edge have an expiration date? Like, is this video going to feed into the people jumping into strata offices? Is the trend shifting is there more interest in strata office to a point where it's not going to be an attractive market anymore?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. Everything has an expiration date, and everything requires a new strategy to get the same results. So you have to be savvy. I'm not telling people to jump in. This is a blind investment that you're going to make guaranteed money off of. There's a path to making a good yield that's happening right now. And that's what I'm presenting.
Yeah.
I don't believe these types of offices are going to pop up around the country. There are new offices being built, but they're mostly grade A offices. You're not going to get these lower tier offices in the market. So I don't believe there's going to be like an oversupply of them. I think they're basically going to stay the same. One thing that is happening is these buildings are aging. They're aging.
True.
And they will require maintenance in maybe like 15, 20 years when they start reaching 50 years old. But as co-owners, you all deal with that, and it's probably not going to be that ridiculous of a thing. But I don't know. I mean, there might be some weird curveball that comes in the future, and we have to be prepared for it. I mean, that's the part of being an investor. It's like keeping your eyes open for these things.
Yeah.
I think it'll trend in a different direction. I think it'll be more valuable in the future. But I have to keep my ear to the ground and make sure I'm paying attention. But in general, on a day-to-day basis, it's a very hands-off investment once you have your tenants in.
Cool.
That's what I found. And I
Well
like that.
said.
I like that.
Well said, man. I mean, the first video that we did together, I titled it Sober Market Analysis because that's actually what I really appreciate from this conversation is you don't sell like a unicorn in the sky kind of dream. You really break down like, okay, here are the real numbers. Here's what you need to consider.
Correct.
I think this is stuff that the viewers really want when coming into real estate investment. They don't want to be sold like buzzwords on a billboard, and you really break down this from a very practical standpoint. So I really appreciate you
that.
coming here
so.
round two. Like I said, man, you could have been home smoking your cigar, counting your money in your leather couch, but instead you came here with the heat of the air conditioning, little under maintenance to share with us here. So I really appreciate that.
Tenant, so I'm just servicing it. So
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No worries. But it's really inspirational what you do, and I really appreciate that you sharing your knowledge, what you've learned here. So everyone, if you really appreciate this, give this video a like. Comment in the description any questions you have or any suggestions you've got. And if you haven't seen our previous interview, the one that inspired the sequel, I'll link to it it's popped up right here. And what else, man? What else is there to say? Good luck with your real estate journey, and see you in the following videos.
And thank you so much, Chet, for having me on the channel. This is always really fun to talk through these things with you.
Absolutely. I always love this.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Take care.